Damn it, stop shaking!
Honestly believe that? Really think you're special?
I'm different.
You're not.
I am.
You're not.
Cyberpunk Edgerunners was an anime I originally started watching for a more traditional review or reaction because it was a big name studio making anime for a big name developer. It would probably and did see a lot of traction, and that's a sad consideration of our world. What's gonna sell the best? This is something I've accepted about my passion. Yielding to the whims of someone else creatively sucks, but it beats living my entire life doing something I hate. You accept it and keep going because that's the only option. I bring this up because this feeling that I had, the idea of acceptance, is at the heart of Edgerunner's message and world building. Their world is cruel in the ways you'd expect of a technological dystopia. Your washing machine can turn off mid-cycle because you run out of money, which means it's checking your bank account constantly, which is terrifying. Your apartment can be locked anytime by your landlord, who can badger you for rent anywhere with the phone installed in your head. Garbage is piled on the streets of poor areas while trains run overhead for the rich to avoid them. You're left to die by emergency services that rely on subscription packages, and regular EMTs will rob you rather than save you, and if you don't make it through with those amazing odds, your ashes get given to your loved ones from a fucking vending machine after the doctor reminds you to pay the bill in monotone. And because anyone can have a weapon in any part of their body, because everyone is just barely held together by extreme levels of medication and can snap just like that, you never know when it'll be your turn to be the ashes in the machine. Well, that's at least true if you're poor. The rich get to avoid such things. Instead of working hard, they can lean back and download all the skills they could ever need. They get to show off the fruits of other people's labor, brag about how awesome the work they stole is. The monetization of this world creates a border that can't be crossed. It would require too much time, money, and energy for any normal person to go from the lower tiers to the higher ones. Moving up is impossible, but just enough near the edge it can lead others to chase it. But that's just a lie. There's an order in this world that's meant to be kept. Edgerunners opens on David and his mother living what little life they can to stress why this doesn't matter. She works for extended hours, even running illegal goods on the side, and that's not enough to keep up with how much David's school costs, especially when they can force you to buy an upgrade at any time. To try and give her son a better life, she misses out on being able to actually live one with him. She exists to keep him in Araska Academy above all. Placed with the most telling course load for this world. It's endlessly fitting that the one class we get to see is a period of meditation. Why would they have actual classes when you can just transfer the data to yourself and have it on a whim? I think we can infer that's the whole situation here. This isn't a school, this is a place you have to pay for over 4 years to keep anyone from a lower status out of the higher echelons of society. It's literally buying a good future. The poor people stay where they are, looked down on by the trains and towers as they're gunned dead in the streets or caught in the crossfire with their lives suddenly ruined. David's life is forever changed by just this. Trapped between the gunman and their target on the highway, his mother crashes in the chaos and dies off screen because they didn't have good medical care. They did nothing wrong, but someone else's single action can tank an entire life's worth of work and savings. One moment can kill the life a mother dreamed for her child, one that was supposed to be worth giving up all of her own. But that's how their world is. All they do is accept it and move on. This is where the excellent world building comes in, selling just how much this is true of every single character in this world. Part of this is the series simply being unabashedly brooding and moody and completely going off my script for a second, but it just leans so heavily into the grit and stink that accompanies sci-fi dystopias. But it is more than that. It isn't just some cheesy look at the future. I mean, people treat this city like a toilet in a bedroom all at once because, based on everything we've said so far, why shouldn't they? They sleep on sidewalks and vomit on vending machines and piss in the open because what reason do they have to take care of a situation that can never get better? To be kind to a city which has never been kind to them. They weren't born with the money to buy a future to afford such kind of niceties. They greet each other naked in smoke-filled rooms or use an automatic fleshlight in public because no matter how much shame or health consciousness they have, there is nothing it will change. They escape into immensely fucked up super VR where you think you're living the experience of mass murder and death to escape the life they're forced to accept. They chrome themselves out, replacing their entire bodies with metal, even at the cost of their own sanity. Because what does sanity do in this world? It just lets you remember how shit everything is. Their doctors casually mention how it'll kill them, and they just keep going anyway. No one is really trying to die, but it's the single escape they have from the pain they all share. They share it so much it unites them in a way. This is a diverse world full of all kinds of people and pieces of their cultures. They speak different languages or with different accents, but that's never made fun of. It's never even mentioned. They don't fight over any of that like you see even in our world. Instead, they fight over class because that's the only true force between people in that world. Who cares what you look like or sound like when everyone has the same exact fate? All of this amazing world building accomplishes one goal. It makes the anime ooze a fucked up sense of acceptance. Life is shit, there is no escape, humanity has been robbed of anything real, so they have no reason to seek anything at all. Then, it puts this to good use by showing us what happens to those who somehow do. Everyone in their world is like a drive, limited in capacity from the moment they're created. Their storage is taken up with useless personal data, and when it's full, it's thrown away, and that's that. An efficient future society has made life itself another allotment like food or water. You're only to get so much, but this does present one technical option. How quickly do you fill up on that storage? If everything is shit and that'll never change, you can accept that and slowly fill up on vague, meandering experiences on the streets. But you can also throw all caution to the wind and decide that a few great moments are better than a life full of not so great ones. This is where we find David. He's a kid desperately craving real stimulation and excitement, never able to sit still. As he tries to maintain himself in any bland situation, his leg bounces endlessly. When he leaves the house, he jumps on a pile of trash below instead of taking the steps just for a momentary thrill. The second he gets any kind of cybernetics, he abuses them to the max and delights in it. After he sticks it to his bullies, he stops in the streets and laughs before falling into depression at home, staring at his mother's ashes. We begin to see what defines him here. He's losing his acceptance. Once willing to drop out of school and work a regular job, an act of acceptance, David begins to believe he is a special case in the city, one who can make it his, an act of denial. He distracts himself from the truth with the excitement he finds himself thrown within. His introduction is exactly this feeling as he engrosses himself in the experience of a murder spree ending in death, bodies cut in half, guns and explosions, cybernetics galore, and an exit from the world different from everyone else. Something fucked up, but special. He catches a glimpse of a legend. When he passes this spot later, he smiles, because that was someone who, for a moment, escaped the clutches of this world, found excitement, who did what he's always desired. And suddenly, he finds his own challenge to this world's stagnation. Lucy pulls him into the schemes of the Edgerunners, the outlaws of this world, making a living stealing chips from the rich and selling them to fund more chrome, more guns, and more parties after their jobs. They face death head-on, jumping out of moving cars without second thought, stealing as much as they breathe, brooding in the cold colors of this world without connection, and finding a warmth which contrasts it as they share dreams and stories in a way no one ever sees. They live through all this shit together, not alone with resignation. David and Lucy teaming up is exceptionally quick, and as we'll see later, it's because it's all a ploy to get back the implant he inadvertently stole from her boss. And for a 10-episode series, there wasn't enough time for some long courting romance. It had to be done quick. But as an element of the story, it also makes sense. It serves another purpose. It pulls you in, wraps you up in something entirely different from the first episode. Suddenly, the brooding feels personal and special. The escapism feels like a dream and not a distraction. The threat of death, a challenge, saying, "Come and get me, you stupid world." As they frolicked on the moon, I found myself lost in what was happening. With a good song and good animation, I just loved it. I wanted it to be real. Like a naive David, and like a jaded Lucy, I wanted to escape into a new world, from my own issues into an anime. I had found myself invested in theirs, how awful it was, and wanted something to prove it all wrong, to show there was some hope that humanity wasn't lost. I wanted excitement and change, something wild I'd never seen before, and the downright insane trigger-style action and animation and storytelling. I wanted to see them succeed in proving those things, getting out of an awful world. Even though it's initially fake, David argues his way out of their ambush and becomes a part of the team where all of these things continue. A reprieve, a bit of tension killed by the levity of him joining on. He goes from their target to their newbie to their friend and eventually their leader. And now we'll get into the real trigger shit as things kick off with a mini heist and a batshit car chase, jumping barriers and grinding on the side, and motorcycle samurais and arm cannons and just everything. Fuck it, who cares? This is wild ride trigger action. Who really cares? Forget for a moment, get invested. This is the real shit we've been waiting for. I mean, look at this cast. There's the grizzled old Maine taking David under his wing, Dorio who can fuck all your shit up with her fists, Rebbecca and Pilar just being crude as shit and funny all the time, Kiwi hacking behind the scenes like Cyberpunk badass, and of course Lucy doing that, and just general badassery too. There's these people who don't download experience they found what was stolen from humanity in a way. They form genuine bonds and live a genuine fun life in a world where those things aren't supposed to exist. Yes, they're chromed, but they also actually train and actually speak about real shit, open and honest. Like a real teacher in Maine and a real student in David, not some hologram like they had in school. They're out there making the experiences other people download. They're humans living in a city which despises living. They have found an answer. They've broken the cold tones of the world with warmth. I want to see them prove. Fuck. And then this happens. Just as the story starts to feel like the most vivid and wild escapism, the same kind of shit David craved, the thing he thought he found, it's all thrown back at us. Everything was going well. A sense of complacency started to set in as they went into these training montages and this general everyday life. It felt like this was leading to what happened next in the anime. There would just be their adventures as a crew. But then, the bloodiness and awfulness is turned on the people we wanted to win. We're reminded of what we forgot. You can't both live happily and long in this world. The overt, excessive gore reserved for throwaway characters is now for our main ones. The people who were supposed to help us forget for a moment now make us brutally remember. They're killed by nobodies, people with no importance to the story more than bringing death to kill and be killed. There's only so much life allotted to those below the highest tiers. The ones who live freely in this world do so at the cost of others who want to do the same. They make us remember. Escape isn't possible. No one in the city avoids their fate. All they can do is choose how quickly they want to reach it. Maine's last words to David are exactly this in its whole.
Fast is what you do best, ain't it? Just keep running.
David ran. He never processed the loss of his mother, never stopped to take in what this world had done to her and done to him. He began to lose his acceptance of the world once he couldn't take it anymore and started running, never to stop again. He started to believe he was special, coping against fate. He ran to Lucy, he ran to Maine, and he ran into a world even more cruel than the one he knew. The cybernetics that make all of this possible drive them insane. Your memories get turned into snuff films for rich assholes. Your mind is hijacked and toyed with by those same programs driving you insane just a bit quicker than the chrome and the medication. Going fast doesn't mean there's less pain. Like everything else, that's a guarantee with just a variable length. You just hope that there's so much going on that sometimes it's easier to forget how much you hurt. Or you never process it, you run and never stop to notice, and eventually you die without ever knowing. Your body may be mangled, but you leave behind a metaphorical corpse, one that's still beautiful for someone. There's another line from Rebbecca that sums this up.
Go on, become that legend, or whatever the fuck you mercs do. Not a tale for the next dreamer.
David becomes a lot like Maine before him, taking up his promise even to use Maine's hands once he's done with them. He bulks up the same way, refuses to back down the same way. He was chasing a legend both then and even from the start. His mother was chasing a legend too. She had the idea that he would climb the ranks of Araska, the largest corporation of Night City, using that bought future to become a legend himself, someone to escape fate. She gave her entire being to this idea and he wanted to follow it through. She does the same thing that he eventually does. In a drug-fueled stupor, with his entire body lost to cybernetics, his mind slipping off the deep end and knowing he's about to die, he climbs Arasaka Tower all the way to the top for as brief a moment as possible, and then he falls back down and is killed. He achieves the dreams others set for him. He chased legend and became one himself. He escaped everything which was guaranteed to be awful in this world, but only for a moment, but only in the most bastardized, most cruel way imaginable. He had to run into just as much pain, only in a different and quicker and more concentrated way. He lost his mind and body and everyone he loved. He had to kill innocent and evil people alike. He had to become the exact thing that stole his mother away for someone else. So did he ever even really escape? Did he actually do something grand? Did he actually become a legend? Or was he simply manipulated to feeling like one by a force from above? In the end, David wasn't special at all. He was allowed to think he was. He was part of a cycle. He was allowed to dream, to create an example to be followed by more dreamers. He was chased out of the shadows and used for his body as a test for Arasaka's greatest weapon, doing their bidding the entire time. Faraday, the fixer who provided his crew with work, was nothing more than a corporate dog, meaning the most they ever did was bash one big player for the sake of another. Their actions weren't planned, but they were sanctioned. David was allotted a little more life than most, but only because it was useful to someone more powerful. He was able to handle an extreme degree of enhancement, letting him be the perfect test subject for Arasaka's cyber skeleton, the ultimate weapon to take the military market share from their greatest corporate rival. That's what his life, everything we see in this anime, comes down to. He was a test subject. They knew he was a viable one from the second episode. They knew of him. They could find him anywhere, anytime. They knew he would probably even hurt some of their own, as he does with both Tanaka and his son. But that's all just the cost of a good test. Once his usefulness was up, he was discarded. When life is so worthless, would Arasaka even really consider everything that occurred a true cost for their test, all that death and destruction? Or is that just business as usual in this world? But even on a basic level, like for the other Edgerunners, he and his crew were allowed to exist in the way they did so they could become legends, the dreams for those who came next. The little bit of hope, the false proof that it's possible to be more than what you're born into, to keep people going, to keep them complacent, to string them along with enough acceptance they trudge through the shit, but always with a glimmer of hope, just enough to keep them from actively killing themselves. To create more test subjects, to keep workers going for profit. Letting a few people run wild to get that much profit seems like a good trade-off if you're evil. There is no escape, even when they choose to live fast and die young. All they are is pawns in a corporate game. Nothing makes this lack of value placed on life more heartbreaking than the resignation in Rebbecca's voice as David completely loses his grip on reality.
You're right, Mom. I know I can. I'll do my best.
All right, David. Let's go. To the top, then.
He was a bright spark, and she probably hoped a fire would break out from him. But her voice makes clear that that hope is dead. She just comforts him, feeds his illusion for one moment, knowing full well that he's gone for good. That they had some amazing times, but they're all over now, that there's nothing more she can do, that from the very start there was nothing she could ever do. It's clear that once you enter the life David did, you don't leave. You're hounded forever, only kept around and only allowed to exist as long as you're useful. You get drawn in by the excitement, the idea of legends that eventually one day it'll lead to something greater than what you came from, and then you're trapped just the same as everyone in the life below the threshold. You start to run and you never stop, you never look back, and eventually you realize that you might have been running for nothing. You keep the blood flowing, the excitement pumping, and in that you're able to be distracted. You start to think like he did that you are special, that you'll be different. The acceptance fades into a denial fueled by medical suppressants and constant upgrades. You begin to destroy everything that once provided you humanity in an inhumane world. You turn into a monster, one who kills even their closest friends or loved ones, who slaughters innocent and guilty alike without hesitation. Trying to escape means power, and power makes monsters like those at the top. Eventually, you pass along the same fate, but you were able to spend a bit less time aware of it, less time feeling it creeping up as you went insane. But you don't even get to leave behind a good-looking corpse. It's mangled, robbed of its humanity, and gored. And not because of the chrome. It's not cybernetics that make this world less human. The most human connection we see is between people chromed to the teeth. They're human because they live, because they loved and lost, because they chose their own path, because they chased legends like humans do, because they believed and hoped, even if they had to cut them short to do so. The lack of humanity isn't from enhancements to the body, it's from our mental and emotional forms being completely mangled. It's from those above the threshold who don't even provide the dignity of a good-looking corpse. So where do we go from here as we take the role David begins in, coming out of a fucked up experience and back into the harsh reality that surrounds us, the high of escapism fading out as we're forced to think about our own world, having done so for a fictional one? I don't know what comes next. David's end is simple. He laughs the same as he did when he first found the excitement he was chasing. In a way, he was happy with how it turned out. He got to leave behind quite a mess, forever escaping the cruelty around him by burning fast and bright. Is that something, at least, that he found some form of happiness in that world? Should we do the same, live fast and die young to stick it to the devils above us? You'd be hard-pressed to find me saying exactly that. I spent years taking the careful path, very rarely detouring from a long, drawn-out existence with a guarantee of survival, but never of happiness. I'm not happy, and you can probably tell from how fucked up this script is how much I've said that word more than usual. I feel more connected to Edgerunners' world than most others in anime. Our own world is not as awful as theirs, but fiction is based in reality. Because of the professional world stress and rat race, I've spent nights recently like David, staring at a screen lost in nothing at all. I've had weeks where I slept maybe 6 hours of the whole 168, agonizing over the pain I felt tied to in this world, one which tells me to give up a majority of my life to be rewarded with freedom 40 years from now. Just like it isn't cybernetics or technology which rob their humanity, it's not those things for us. It's the forces which drive such things to be in their current states. It's the idea that we are nothing but their way to make money. It's the people who ask us to give up our bodies and our energy simply to be allowed to survive when they only succeed from being born into success. If you watch anything in the vein of Cyberpunk and don't come away with fuck corporations as at least part of the message, then you're doing some stupid mental gymnastics. Fuck the bastards that devalue your life and pit us against each other while doing it. Fuck the people who enforce a scarcity that doesn't exist, even to the extent of life itself being hoarded. There isn't a hopeful end to the anime, there's just a cycle David was always a part of. But after we observe this, there can be a hopeful end for us. To witness these things, to ponder them in our own world, and then to stand up to them with a resounding no. But there's nothing more I could add to the end of this video to make it any better. Normally I'd like to end on something a bit more open-ended, but Cyberpunk Edgerunners was very direct and brute with its message. These are things I've found in other series, you've probably recognized them from other videos, but they're just a lot more direct here, and that's because Edgerunners is a very brute force anime when it comes to this message. And that's Trigger's style, and they did it really well and found how that style really works. So it's a great series overall with a very true, sadly true message. But I'm already starting to ramble, so I'll just leave you with some important links in the pinned comment. Most importantly, my Patreon, where these lovely people above me support me directly and help me escape all these things I just complained about, which I appreciate to no end. But I appreciate everyone watching, as always, for giving me a moment of your valuable time. So I'll just say thank you for watching, and I hope I'll see you again soon.